"I'll tell you what it's about," she said. "The labyrinth." It was hard to concentrate on what she was saying, because everybody in the dining pavilion was stealing glances at us and whispering, and Annabeth was right next to me. I mean, right next to me. "You're not supposed to be here," I said. "We need to talk," she insisted. "But the rules." She knew as well as I did that campers weren't allowed to switch tables. Satyrs are different. They weren't really demigods. But the half-bloods had to sit with their cabins. I wasn't even sure what the punishment was for switching tables. I'd never seen it happen. If Mr. D had been here, he probably would have strangled Annabeth with magical grapevines or something. But Mr. D wasn't here. Chiron had already left the pavilion. Quintus looked over at us and raised an eyebrow, but he didn't say anything. "Look," Annabeth said, "Grover's in trouble. The only way we can figure out how to help him is if we work together. It's the labyrinth. That's what Clarice and I have been investigating." I shifted in my weight, trying to think clearly. "You mean the maze where they kept the Minotaur back in the old days?" "Exactly." "So it's not under the King's Palace in Crete anymore," I guessed. "The labyrinth is under some building in America?" See, it only took me a few years to figure things out. I knew that important places moved around with the Western civilization, like Mount Olympus being over the Empire State Building and the underworld entrance being in Los Angeles. I was feeling pretty proud of myself. Annabeth rolled her eyes. "Under a building? Percy, the labyrinth is huge. It wouldn't fit under a single city, much less a single building." I thought about my dream of Nico at the River Styx. "So, is the labyrinth part of the underworld?" "No," Annabeth frowned. "Well, there may be passages from the labyrinth down into the underworld. I'm not sure, but the underworld is way, way down. The labyrinth is right under the surface of the mortal world, kind of like a second skin. It's been growing for thousands of years, lacing its way under western cities, connecting everything together underground. You can get anywhere through the labyrinth." "If you don't get lost," Grover muttered, "and die a horrible death." "Grover, there has to be a way," Annabeth said. "I got the feeling that we can figure it out." "Clarice lived?" "Barely," Grover said. "And the other guy?" "He was driven insane. He didn't die." "Oh, joy." Grover's lip quivered. "That makes me feel so much better." "Whoa," I said. "Back up. What's this about Clarice and a crazy guy?" Annabeth glanced over towards the Ares table. Clarice was watching us like she knew what we were talking about. But then she fixed her eyes on her breakfast plate. "Last year," Annabeth said, lowering her voice, "Clarice went on a mission for Chiron." "I remember," I said. "It was a secret." Annabeth nodded. Despite how serious she was acting, I was really happy she wasn't mad at me anymore. And I kind of liked the fact that she'd broken the rules to come sit next to me. "It was secret," Annabeth agreed, "because she found Chris Rodriguez." "The guy from the Hermes cabin?" I remembered him from 2 years ago. We eavesdropped on Chris Rodriguez aboard Luke's ship, the Princess Andromeda. Chris was one of the half-bloods who abandoned camp to join the Titan army. "Yeah," Annabeth said. "Last summer he appeared in Phoenix, Arizona, near Clarice's mom's house." "What do you mean? He just appeared?" "He was wandering around in the desert in 120 degrees in full Greek armor, babbling about string." "String?" I said. "He'd been driven completely insane. Clarice brought him back to her mom's house so that the mortals would institutionalize him. She tried to nurse him back to health. Chiron came to interview him, but it wasn't much good. The only thing he got out of him, Luke's men have been exploring the labyrinth." I shivered, though I wasn't exactly sure why. Poor Chris. He hadn't been that bad a guy. What could have driven him mad? I looked at Grover, who was chewing the rest of his fork. "Okay," I asked. "Why were they exploring the labyrinth?" "We weren't sure," Annabeth said. "That's why Clarice went on a scouting expedition. Chiron kept things hushed up because he didn't want anyone panicking. He got me involved because, well, the labyrinth has always been one of my favorite subjects. The architecture involved?" Her expression turned a little dreamy. "The builder, Daedalus, was a genius. But the point is, the labyrinth has entrances everywhere. If Luke can figure out how to navigate it, he can move his army around with incredible speed." "Except it's a maze, right?" "Full of horrible traps," Grover agreed. "Dead ends, illusions, psychotic goat-killing monsters." "But not if you had Adrian's string," Annabeth said. "In the old days, Adrian's string guided Theseus out of the maze. It was a navigation instrument of some kind, invented by Daedalus, and Chris Rodriguez was mumbling about string." "So Luke is trying to find Riordan's string," I said. "Why? What's he planning?"